Today, we're going to be taking a look at one of only two new raid weapons added with the Warmind Expansion in the new Spire of Stars raid lair. The weapon in question is the Emperor's Envy Fusion Rifle. Is it any good? Is it worth going after? Well, let's get started. What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we are going to take a look at the Emperor's Envy Raid Lair Fusion Rifle. This is completing the set, really. This weapon and the other raid lair weapon from the Spire of Stars, the sidearm, are the last two in the entire set of Leviathan weapons. Most of them exist within the original Leviathan raid lair. The shotgun and the grenade launcher are in Eater of Worlds, and these are the last two. So, I think it's fair to say that Spire of Stars is certainly not a walk in the park, especially with the increase in the recommended light level for that activity. So the loot has definitely got some stuff to live up to. Now let's take a look at this weapon's stats and perks. Now, stats-wise, this belongs to the 740 charge time damage archetype for fusion rifles. Other notable weapons in this category include the main ingredient fusion rifle, super highly used, a very popular weapon. Does this live up to the main ingredient? Well, looking at the rest of the stats, frankly, not so much. When we compare the Emperor's Envy to the main ingredient, we can see the stats are nearly identical, but the main ingredient has a big chunk extra handling and a tiny bit more stability as well. So the Emperor's Envy doesn't stand out stats-wise. What about its perks? Well, first off, it has the Precision Frame intrinsic perk as indicative of its damage archetype. It has 3 different ballistics or coils, one of which letting you increase the impact by also raising the charge time. But then things get interesting. Because this is a raid weapon, it has additional main perks to choose from. You can pick Ambitious Assassin, where getting multi-kills with the current magazine will make the next reloaded magazine a lot bigger. This does come up, and you're going to see in some background gameplay, especially in PvE, you can easily get up to 8 or 9 rounds in a magazine, which is pretty darn good. You can also choose Moving Target. Increased movement speed and target acquisition while aiming down sights. And lastly, we have the PvE All-Star, that is Rampage. Getting a kill increases your damage stacks up to 3 times. Now, interestingly enough, the main ingredient also has Rampage. It's one of its signature perks. It's one of the perks that makes it as good as it is. So essentially, perks-wise, you basically get a main ingredient, like same damage archetype, same everything, but you also get the extra choice of Moving Target or Ambitious Assassin as perks. Is that worth giving up a chunk of handling? Well, let's start out here with PvP. And frankly, when I use this in PvP, I didn't really like it too much. There was a few times where I got some pretty sick, snipes with this fusion rifle. I felt like it was doing work, and even some times where I felt like Rampage was coming into its own. But you definitely miss out on that handling. I felt like a lot of times the Emperor's Envy just let me down. I would be very close to an enemy, I would shoot, expect to kill, and then he would have just no shields, but still very much be shooting me. I also remember shouting out one time, I could bake a cake in this weapon's darn charge time. So yeah, wasn't necessarily having the best time with this weapon. Certainly wasn't massively underperforming, but didn't feel like it was doing anything for me. And I probably would have preferred the main ingredient. It's just, again, easier to use. It is also a little difficult to use fusion rifles in the current meta. Almost everyone has an anti-hope or a last hope ready to gun you down while you're still charging your weapons. However, if you are a fusion rifle aficionado, if you're someone who is used to charging before they get around corners and is really good with fusion rifles, there is some serious kill potential with the combination of Moving Target especially and Rampage. Ambitious Assassin doesn't come up whatsoever in PvP. 6 rounds is plenty to kill pretty much an entire team. So even though I wasn't loving this weapon, there is some definite power potential there. And if you are, again, a fusion rifle lover, this is a weapon to keep your eye out for. But moving on from there, we have its performance in PvE. This, of course, is going to be where Ambitious Assassin does shine. You definitely want that more than moving target in PvE. And here, I mean, it's pretty darn good. You don't really notice the lack of handling as much in PvE. In PvP, you can definitely notice some irregularities, but in PvE, you're shooting Minotaurs and so on, and you're shooting them at a lot closer ranges, so it's just harder to miss in general. And so you're landing a bunch of shots, and you have a main ingredient that sometimes gets 9 rounds in a magazine. That is nothing to scoff at. This is an undoubtedly very powerful legendary fusion rifle to use in PvE. You can easily get to ×3 with Rampage and then have 4 or even 5 shots left in the magazine with Rampage ×3 just cutting through enemies. With that being said, although this is a powerful legendary fusion rifle, how good are legendary fusion rifles in the overall PvE meta? You're giving up a lot to use this weapon. Even in the legendary categories, we have rocket launchers with cluster bombs like the Sins of the Past and the Curtain Call, not to mention shotguns got a massive 35% buff recently, so stuff like the Perfect Paradox and the Hawthorne's Feel Forged are also going to play similarly to this weapon, where you play a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more close range. But the Perfect Paradox, being fully automatic and just being a shotgun, is able to take down enemies a lot faster than the Emperor's Envy, especially when you account for charge time. So that's really the guys that you need to look at this weapon for when you're talking about top tier PvE choices. Yes, it's a great fusion rifle, but fusion rifles in general, aside from the Sleeper Simulant, aren't doing super duper amazing. Especially when you consider that one of the most important factors in choosing your power weapon in a PvE role is boss DPS. And fusion rifles, not necessarily linear fusion rifles again, just normal fusion rifles, are just not great at boss DPS. The charge time just kills these weapons' overall damage output. So again, sniper rifles, shotguns, rocket launchers, linear fusion rifles, those are all miles ahead when you're damaging a boss, whether it be in a strike or whether it be in a raid or what have you. So fusion rifles are kind of in a flux zone in PvE, which is sad because they are a really fun and effective weapon to use. Being able to burst down an enemy and do a huge chunk of damage from ranges well beyond shotgun range is something very useful. It's just that, again, that overall damage, that damage output isn't there. So we arrive at the question I posed at the beginning of the video. Is it worth going out and getting this weapon? Which again is no easy task. Well, frankly, for that to be the case, this would have to be the next Vanilla D2 Uriel's Gift, or the next Antiope D, a weapon that is very, very good, that everyone is going to want to use. In PvE, this would have to be the next Rockets with Cluster Bomb, right? And I definitely don't feel like that's the case. If you get this weapon, I feel like you definitely can use it. It has a place in PvP and in PvE, and it's certainly not a bad weapon by any means. The unfortunate part is it just doesn't belong in the top tier of the meta, which it would need to be worth the effort to go out and get. Again, it's a little unfortunate. Certainly, though, if you do get it, you'll make your friends jealous, so there's always that. With that being said, the other Spire of Stars weapon, the sidearm, sounds a lot more interesting. It's a triple burst sidearm, which have been very good in PvP, with the full auto perk. So it's just like a pulse rifle you can find with full auto. Hold the trigger and it keeps bursting, which that to me sounds like a pretty disgusting combination. I thought we had enough of Last Hope, but now we got a full auto one. But I would also love to hear from you guys. If any of you have this weapon, let me know how it's treating you. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.